Hi, everybody. Suzanne Giesemann here with a surprise live video. I didn't expect to be doing this morning, but quite a few people have reached out and asked me to talk about spirit's viewpoint of what's going on in the United States after the election, and to hopefully give some of you some peace and a different perspective on how to deal with what you've been dealing with and see what we're going through in a different way. You might notice that I chose a purple shirt to wear tonight. There's a reason for that. In our country, we represent our two political parties, the main ones, Democrats and Republicans, with two different colors, blue and red. I always get confused about which color it is. But, you know, when you combine blue and red, it makes purple, which in the spiritual sense is the highest color, the most divine color. So I wanted to wear this shirt, but I remembered that it was missing a button. I went to wear it the other day for a reading that I was doing for someone, and I had to change to something different because I didn't know what happened to the button. Well, Ty and I just finished a long day of driving. You're going to love this. 333 miles, a good number, 333. And we went for a walk to stretch our legs, did a couple miles just before dinner here. And I came back and I took off my running shoe, and the button to this shirt was in the shoe. It fell down in the closet into the shoe. I took that as a sign of spirit saying, wear that purple suit, wear that purple shirt, do this live event. And I'm doing it live on purpose. I want you to know that my talk to you this evening is coming from the heart. It's not prepared, although I do have some comments from spirit in the way of Wake and Way messages and some comments from community members from my Wake and Way community that I wanted to share with you. So I printed those out. So let me start with what prompted this talk tonight. It came from a community member who emailed me, and she said, "It has not escaped me that a heavy, dense energy has crept into some of the comments on your social media posts." She's right. One of the things I love about my Facebook page, about this Awake and Wake community, is how many people get it, that no matter our differences, we can shift to the soul's perspective, the bigger picture, the wholeness, and treat each other with love and compassion and understanding. And we may not agree with each other, but we can speak from a place of love. And she's right. Some of those comments were expressing people's anger, and we're all entitled to our own feelings, but that's human mode. And the Awakened Way reminds us we are both human and souls. And when we catch ourselves about to say something that's pointing fingers at another, we stop, we shift to the soul's perspective and say, I hear what you're saying, and here's a different perspective. So she was right. Some of those comments got a little dense, got a little heavy, and I just let them be. It's not my place to censor anyone, but to allow each other to listen to how we're coming across and say, is there a better way? That's always going to be the awakened way, the soul's perspective. So this community member wrote, I'm calling this dense energy and those comments missing the point on the Awakened Way messages that people were commented on. And I agree, that's it. They missed the point that we're both human and souls. She thanked me for being ever patient, ever solid in your knowing that we are more than human. And it is an ever solid knowing we are souls. And this makes all the difference. When I see people sniping at each other, my heart opens and I know they've forgotten we're souls. We're souls here and now. They just don't know it. So I hope that I can help to remind some of you this evening. And if some of you haven't experienced yourself as a soul yet in this human costume that you're wearing, this human role that you're playing, hopefully something that I say with my beautiful guides in spirit helping me to say just the right words this evening will bring that soul awareness to the forefront. It is my journey of mediumship that allows me to know beyond a doubt that we are souls. And with my background as a Navy commander, very left brain, very logical, in the box, I need evidence from the spirit world to prove to me that we're souls. And I always love in my teaching to share the very latest and greatest from the spirit world, because you ask for the spirit's perspective on the election and the aftermath of that. So let me just tell you a little evidence. This morning, I gave a reading sitting right here in my RV to a woman whose loved one came through so clearly with evidence. She validated, yep, that's my loved one. You couldn't have known that, Suzanne. And I glanced over at the clock over there across the room, and the time was 9:24 a.m. As I looked at that, the loved one in spirit, who's communicating with me real time, said, that is a date, and it's very significant. I knew it wasn't a birthday, but I heard the message, and I said to my sitter in that reading, your loved one just told me September 24th, 9/24, is a significant date, not her birthday, but a significant date. And my client said, oh my gosh, September 24th is the day we laid her to rest. I give this anecdote to you as evidence that I was connecting with a soul who is not dead and gone, but is right here, who used a very clever, creative way to grab my consciousness with the clock and say 9:24 is the time, but it's also a significant date. What's the point of all this? We are all souls. Communicating with higher consciousness is possible for all of us. Shifting to the soul's perspective at any time is possible for us because we are souls. So, have I always had this ability? No. As I mentioned, I was a Navy commander, and I want to tell all of you, getting back to the election, I taught political science at the U.S. Naval Academy when I was on active duty. I believe I was a lieutenant commander at the time. And I taught American government. So I know politics, maybe a little more than most people. I know the electoral college system. I know about democracy and other systems of government and why our democracy is so important to protect. And that's why we have elections. I would like to tell you, one of the best things about being at the Naval Academy was seeing those dedicated midshipmen, dedicated to service to their country. To me, it's service to humanity. But the highlight of the year when teaching at the Naval Academy was the Army-Navy football game. It's the greatest rivalry in sports, in my opinion. Ty and I don't watch much football, but we watch the Army-Navy game every year. And you know, there's something about competition and having two teams that brings out the best in each player. And in our democracy, we have various teams, and what a gift to have a bit of competition. But more than that, what a gift to get to choose instead of being told who is going to be our leader. And so just as in the Army-Navy game, we have winners and losers. And I always know the best and the worst part of every Army-Navy game was at the end, when the game had been decided by those two teams competing. And you saw the winners and they're rejoicing and they're jumping up and down. And you see the losers, these adult men trained to be military leaders, crying because that game was that important to them. And if you could see past the my team, your team, us versus them, your heart opens for those who didn't win that competition. You feel compassion. You understand how they feel. That's the soul speaking to us in the midst of a game. That's the soul saying, you're here to play different roles. You're going to take on different teams. You're going to identify with different teams. But you know what's beautiful about the Army-Navy game? All those players know that ultimately they may wear different uniforms, but they're all defending democracy. And they may end up on the same battlefield, defending our right to choose a leader. And because of our beautiful system, we all get to participate. Okay, enough of the political science lesson. But It's so important to realize that that game is like an analogy for what's going on at our human level and the soul level. And Spirit asked me right now to remind you, you are wearing a costume. It's called a body. And this body is ruled by a brain, which causes us to point out, to focus on dangers, what we consider negatives, to the exclusion of what might be positives. Just notice that's the brain. Once we no longer have a brain, what's left? The soul. I talk to souls all the time. We need to learn to bypass the filter of the brain and see the whole picture, the big picture. So Spirit's saying right now, yes, you are absolutely entitled to either feel despondent or jubilant, depending on the team you have identified with. But can you widen the lens? Can you bypass the filter and say, wait a minute, ultimately, we're all on the same team, humanity's team. We are all ultimately cells in the one body of God, of Spirit, who does not choose sides. And where there is no side, there's only wholeness. I did an interview the other day, and the interviewer, Alec Zek, asked me to comment on the election. It was the day after election when I did the interview. And as he asked the question, my guides in spirit grabbed me and said one word: opportunity. And I knew what they were talking about. That this election, just like every challenge we face, every time we deal in relationships and knock heads, is an opportunity. Don't you know that your loved ones who push your buttons are your greatest teachers? It doesn't matter who won this election. They were going to be pushing the buttons of someone. Our country is divided into two teams. We have an opportunity now to see, yes, we're players in this game of life, and we are also souls. The opportunity to not clash anymore, but to use this competition as a way to evolve our consciousness. Do you realize that the greatest challenge we all face as humans is the perception that we are separate? And it's these costumes, these bodies that make us appear separate. So in a way, yes, of course, we're separate. That's what allows us to throw a football from one person to another, the separation. But at the deeper level, this field of consciousness on which we're playing, we are not separate. It goes back to, again, all cells in the one body of God. So where you place your focus is what you perceive. You can step out of body awareness and focus on your inner world and come to know yourself as the life force that flows through you. I can tell immediately when someone has not made that shift and is identifying solely with the human side. I do it myself, and hopefully we catch ourselves and say, whoa, that was human. I was a little out of balance with who I really am, the soul. And we shift and ask, how would the soul react? How can we bring everybody into this picture and work together? So another community member wrote to me, and I'll read it. Many of us are looking for answers today and trying to balance holding the light while still letting our feelings and emotions flow. The temptation as spiritual leaders in our communities might be to bypass our own personal feelings of fear and not let ourselves move through them. She's right. It's very important to feel it as you acknowledge that's only part of your wholeness. Many people are frightened. That shows they're in human identification. Some are outraged and would say holding the light is simply not enough. You're right, when you're in human mode. But being the light allows you to shed the light on everyone's perspective and say, am I seeing the big picture? So I'll tell you that right now, Ty and I are just on the final legs of a 2,600-mile trip by car and RV across the country. literally across our beautiful country from one coast to the other, from Washington State to South Carolina, with 9 states in between. And just like life, just like this election, it has not flowed as we wished it would. We got stuck in the town of Hurricane, Utah. And I know those of you who live there, you call it Hurricane. I heard you. We were stuck there for 5 days due to maintenance issues. It was a real opportunity for me to practice the Awakened Way tools and to keep looking for, is there a bigger picture that I'm not seeing here? Is there a reason? I mean, there were a few nice things that came up from being there. I met some beautiful souls along the way, but I still don't see the bigger picture. And I know, and my guys just said, yes, you can trust this, that many of us are not seeing the bigger picture with this election outcome. We never will while we're in these human bodies because of the filters of the brain. But can you at least imagine that there are possibly good outcomes no matter which team you're on? And it's up to us. Many psychics predicted the outcome of this election, and they were wrong. Why is that? Because in our human suits, even if we can foresee a little bit of the future, we don't always have the biggest picture. And all of these individual cells in the body of spirit were making individual choices. That's the beauty of free will. It's the wild card. Now we need to use, says Spirit, our free will to choose the soul's perspective when we feel ourselves going to places of anger, going to fear. Fear happens when we go to the future and try to become psychics. Can you truly accurately predict what is going to happen as a result of this election? I can't. I'm going to flow and trust that Spirit is helping all of us, guiding us if we will listen, and that each person will learn to follow their heart and tune into the soul. This is definitely a journey. So we got stuck in Hurricane Utah. And then when we got to Texas, a hurricane, an actual hurricane, was headed towards Louisiana, where we were headed next. It caused us to change our plans, just like this election has caused many people to change their plans. Well, the hurricane veered off. For a moment, perhaps some human fright, and it ended up not being a big issue. But here we are on a different path than we expected. Can you see how life mirrors the big picture all the time? Well, so does a hurricane. It's the perfect analogy. This chaos that we're all engaged in right now is swirling around us. But where do we go to find the calm? To the center of the storm. And that's what the Awakened Way teaching tells us to do. Find your center when you catch yourself pointing fingers, judging others, gloating, perhaps. Both teams are reacting differently. Is one way better than another, or is it all human nature? Yeah, that is human nature, but there is a better way. Go to the center, to that field of consciousness on which there is no clashing, where higher insights and guidance arise. My guides gave me a message the other day that I want to read to you, another one that I posted on Facebook. Actually, it was this morning, and I love it because they're paraphrasing my favorite verse from Rumi. Out beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, or out beyond ideas of Democrat and Republican, there is a field. I will meet you there. That field is at the center of each of us. It's a place, an eye of complete calm and peace, where there is no separation. That is a place of love. That is the seat of the beloved. That is the source of all of us. I will meet you there, says Rumi. And that's where I want to meet all of you. You meet me there. There's no finger pointing. There's no name calling. There's no anger. There's no fear. There's no gloating. There's just love. So here's what Sanaya, my guide, said this morning in the Awakened Way daily message. Out beyond ideas and language and actions that differ, there is a field. I will meet you there. We have been trying to steer you there, says Spirit, to invite you there, to gift you the opportunity to lie down in that field, beautiful soul. In that field, there are no stories. There are no concepts of right doing and wrongdoing. Does that mean you don't worry about what is going on around you? Not in that field. For in that field, you are able to see your dreams and your daydreams and your life and your friends and your neighbors for what they are. All God Spirit consciousness arising as your dreams and your daydreams and your life and your friends and your neighbors. And in that field, you take a breath, a long, slow, deep breath of peace before heading back out into the storm, hoe in hand, to either dig more ruts or smooth them over. That last line, when I heard it come from my guides this morning and wrote their words, is brilliant. Take your hoe from that field and dig more ruts, meaning stick to your story only. Continue identifying with the ego that says, I am this political party. I am so angry. You have every right to have your feelings based on the story you're living. But you're so much more than the story. I am. When nothing comes beyond that, now you're back to the field. Now you're back to the oneness. But as long as you stick to the story, you're going to be digging that rut, and we don't evolve as one team. This is the opportunity from this election to stop digging ruts, smooth them over, and build a new field together. You get to choose, just like we do in a democracy. You get to choose. We all get to choose. Are we going to come together or continue the division? We are coming into balance. Our planetary system is coming into balance to the center of our galaxy. Literally, the vibrations are aligning. That's why we're going through a bit of a storm as we approach the eye. We need to make choices to come into alignment with what's happening all around us and stop digging in and saying, I'm not going to change. This is an opportunity, and change often brings with it chaos. Can you see the positives that are possible from the chaos? This is an opportunity. So if you find yourself gloating about the election results, you're identifying with one side of the wholeness. If you find yourself despairing and angry, you are identifying with one side of the wholeness. There is a better way, the awakened way that says, I'm not only human. I'm part of one big whole web with everything connected. I have a book called The Awakened Way. It's all about making the shift to a divinely guided life. It's the I am, that divine essence in each of us that lets us know there is a better way. So check out the tools in that book, such as the human spirit dial with presence, realizing when you're fully dialed up to the human side and saying snarky things to each other, or when you're aligned with the soul and you see the bigger picture, or at least try to. I made a list of a couple tools here. The Sip of the Divine. Check out my YouTube video, The Sip of the Divine, how you can spend just 3 minutes a day and find that calm inner center and ask Spirit, what's the best way to react to what I'm feeling right now? Because I don't like how it makes me feel. Show me a better way. Try the Sip of the Divine. Download and use my Awakened Way app. It's free. Go to your iPhone or your Android And whatever way you get your apps, enter in awakened way. Read the last few days' messages. I'll tell you that one person commented on one of those messages that they usually like the messages, but they sound rather naive recently. I wanted to comment on that, but that would have been defensive, and it's the ego that defends itself. I want information. I want consciousness to speak to me when I feel like defending the ego. So you know what I did? I looked up naive, because it's not the first time I've been called naive. So I want to share with you. I found some definitions. Here we go. Naive: having or showing a lack of experience, a lack of judgment, a lack of information. I'm pretty honored to be called naive, if that's the definition, because to not judge each other is a gift. I shared with you my background. I believe I have information about elections, and I believe I've had a lot of experiences from the spirit world. I'm not going to get into defending myself. I'm asking all of you. Maybe you might like to try having a lack of judgment and recognizing if naivete comes from not having all the information. I'm checking with spirit. They say, yes, it is true. Much of our anger comes from not having enough information. In other words, we don't have the big picture. Can you agree with that? What is your information source with a capital S? It's determining your story. Another definition of naive: absence of artificiality, plain, open, candid, guileless, artless, unaffected, and simple. Bring it on. I want to be guileless, artless, simple, plain, and open. If that's the definition of naive, Spirit, give me your messages. Lead me, guide me, make me your messenger. This is my prayer every day, because I've seen a lot of people putting stories out there that are not helping us. When we shift our focus, I'll wrap it up here before I start sounding like a preacher. When we stick to our story, it causes us to take on an affectation that is not aligned with the soul. When we shift beyond the story and go to the calm center of the storm, we are unaffected, guileless, open. If that's naive, bring it on. And then when we shift back to our human stories, may we bring back with us that peace, that centeredness, that ability to say to others on the other team, I see you. I hear you. My filters are different from yours. I have a different story. I may be on a different team than you, but I know in my heart we ultimately belong to one team. This is the opportunity. I'm so grateful to belong to a democratic society where we get to choose. And there may be those who cry at the outcome, and there may be those who celebrate, but ultimately we are all part of humanity's team. It's my honor. Thank you for giving me a chance to share what I've learned from Spirit. And I hope that something I've shared this evening has helped you find peace and a better way forward. God bless us all, and good night.